Hi there, welcome back to my shop. A couple of months ago, I said that I was going to do a giveaway when I hit 20,000 subscribers. Now, at this very moment, I'm about 25 subscribers short of that number. But I think it's time to make the announcement, and I will do the draw for it a little ways down the road. I'll tell you more about that at the end of the video. Now, there are actually going to be 3 prizes. Almost immediately after I made that announcement, I got an email from Tom and Annette, the people who make Axe abrasive sanding paste and polish restoring paste. And they said they want to give away one of these kits that includes both the abrasive and the polishing pastes. And all of these prizes are worldwide. The winners will get them no matter where they are, as long as they have an address we can send them to. The second thing that's going to be given away, I was offered by Starbond, and they're going to send you, the winner, a bottle of the extra fast thin, the medium, the thick, the medium thick black, and the medium thick brown. I haven't even opened my bottle of this yet. And they're cold. I keep them in the freezer to make sure they last longer. Another thing about Starbond, if you followed me for a while, you know that you can get 15% off your purchase price on Starbond products if you use the code word from my channel. And they have a one-time offer if you go to their website, and I will put a link down below in the description box for this, and register, sign in, start an account, and then click on the subscribe button to subscribe to their newsletter. And that will allow you 30% off on your next purchase. That's a pretty good deal. I like that. Now, I checked it out. I already had an account, and right beside my email address was the subscribe button. So take a look for that and sign in or start an account if you haven't already got one. Now, the third thing I'm going to give away is going to be a segmented bowl. I have done a design for it. I intend to make it out of maple and walnut, and we'll see how this goes. Now, to win any of these prizes, the first draw is going to be for the Axe pastes. The second draw will be for the Starbond, and the third draw will be for the vessel that I hope I'm going to come up with and make a nice job of. There are 3 rules. Number 1, you have to be a subscriber. If you're not a subscriber, you're not eligible. Number 2, you have to put a comment in saying whatever you want. It could be good, could be bad, could be indifferent, doesn't matter. Just put in a comment. And the third thing is, in that comment, you have to include a word. And I'm going to flash that word on screen during the video a couple of times. It'll flash on and off, so I'm sure you're not going to miss it. Just include that word in your comment and you'll be eligible. And I'll tell you more about that at the end of the video, because after all, I have to go and make that vessel now. So I hope you'll stick around and see what I come up with. All right, I've got them all cut. I took them all and sanded to get all the fuzzies off the edges. Now let's just see how this is going to fit. All right, no gaps. Now I'm just going to get the glue bottle. I'll glue all these together. I'm sure you will notice that I am working with walnut. I did not have enough to complete the project, and when I went to the hardwood supplier, I found that they had sapele on sale, so I decided to switch to that. And I did not see the point in re-recording all of this work. I'm going to attach the base of this hollow form to this glue block using hot glue. And when I put hot glue on it, I just put it right around the edge. I don't put any underneath. And I have had more than one turner tell me that that's not good enough, that it's not going to hold. Well, I have yet to have one break off, so I guess I'll just keep doing it in spite of all that advice. I'm going to use plenty of hot glue, and after this cools real sufficiently, I will come back and take care of the next ring. And I don't know if you can see the steam or not, but I have got this glue real hot. It needs to be as hot as you can get it. Now my next step is to put a floating disc in here. While I think the sapele and maple are going to make for a nice combination, I thought I would throw some splash of color into this just as a surprise to someone who looks at the bottom. So I have cut a disc of Movinge. I really like the color of this once it's got a little finish on it. So I'm going to cut the recess for this. I've shown that many times. I'm not going to spend the time showing you that. And I'll be back when I get this put in. Okay, it is 1/4 of an inch deep. I used this flat piece of wood in here just to make sure that it's nice and flat all the way across. This side of this disc is already sanded fairly well. I'll do a little more on it, but this side is really rough and it's thick anyway, so I'm going to be turning that down. Now what I'm going to do is lock the spindle so it doesn't turn. I'm going to put a small bit of glue, just a dab, on each end of the grain. And I'll put that in, and I'm using a cone in my live center to hold it there. Center a little, you can see there is some movement. That's all it needs to be. I'm going to hold that in there with this live center for a while. Then I'm going to turn this down flush, but I'm not going to bother showing you that. And I'll be back. All right, that's what I'm looking for. I want to get no glue at all in this opening. It would defeat the purpose of having this floating disc. So I'm going to use no more than I think is necessary. Put it on with this brush and try to keep it away from that opening. This is one of the very few times where I don't put lots of glue on both sides of a joint. if I was to put glue on the face of the next ring, there would be a danger that I would be working it down inside that area. So far I've been lucky, I haven't had one come apart. Let's see what happens today. All right, slide it up, lock the spindle, spin this just with gentle pressure, and now I will tighten it up. Now you might be able to see that I have drawn lines on the center of every fourth segment and then drawn a vertical line down to match it up to the joint in the ring below it. And then of course the joint on this ring will come down to the center of this segment. All right. Tighten that up one more time in case the glue is migrating out of there. And now I'm going to let that sit for at least an hour. I want to explain how I get real thin rings like this. I don't glue on a ring that thin. I glue on a full ring. This one's about 5/8 of an inch thick. Then I use a parting tool to trim that to the thickness I want, plus a little bit. If I tried, for instance, with this next one, which is going to be 1/32 of an inch thick, I might turn my parting tool one way or the other just a little bit too much and end up with a very thick or very thin ring toward the inside. So I like to part off just a little bit outside of that and then use either my bowl gouge and or my sanding board to get that to the right thickness. So I'm going to get my face shield and then I will show you some of this process. Also, you'll notice I've got my coal jaws just barely hanging on to this segmented ring. And that's because when I do part through here, I don't want that ring flying all over the place. I'll be able to preserve it and just drag it out of the way. All right, this is very, very thin. So I have got it a little thicker on the inside, and I'll use a sanding board just to take that little bit off. You may have noticed that the parting tool slipped on me, and I actually got this a little bit thinner than I want on the outside. But I turned the parting tool this way, so it's a little thicker on the inside. Still very thin, but that should show up between the two pieces of sapele that will bracket it. Now I put pencil marks in here so I can see when it's being sanded away. I'm not going to try to remove the pencil lines all the way to the outside. It's very thin out here, about maybe 3/64 of an inch in places and even thinner in others. So I'll get my face shield on to protect my lungs. And then I'll be sanding this. I've got the dust hood set up to take the dust away. All right, I think that's going to be just fine. I'll put the next Sapele ring on and all the rings until I get to the feature ring, and I will show you how to put that together. The more rings I put on, and the deeper the bowl gets, the more difficult it is to get in there and turn the shape. So before I put the feature ring on, I want to shape the inside of this bowl. All right, I think that's pretty good. I have a stop here with a piece of maple that I can put the Sapele against and get consistent width. And the fact that I'm cutting at this angle will allow the grain on the Sapele to line up with that of the maple. And it usually spits the piece out behind there, so I don't have to wait for the blade to slow down. Each segment in the feature ring is comprised of 3 pieces that I cut on the table saw. 2 pieces of maple and a wedge of Sapele to go in between them. Now to glue up these 3 pieces, I'm going to glue twice. First I'm going to glue this pair together, and after the glue dries, I'll put in the 3rd one. Now to glue it, I'm going to use what is known as a rub joint. First I'm going to make sure that the glue is well spread over both of the pieces. And then when I put them together, I will rub them to be sure I move it into the wood as much as possible, and then hold it for 5 or 6 seconds, which is enough to get the glue to grab. After that, I will finish all of the other segments and then come back and put this third piece on. Doesn't get much simpler than that. And I'll be back. I have made pencil marks on what is going to be the bottom and an adjacent side, and I'm just going to very gently touch them to my disc sander to straighten them out. They're very good, but they're not perfect. Now I will be able to take this over to my wedgie sled and start the process on making these into the segments I need. I have numbered each of these different pieces, and the numbers are going to be toward me when I start this cut, and they will end up being the back or the inside of the ring. Now don't call the safety police. I'm going to be holding it down with my fingers and pushing forward with this push stick. So everything should be just fine as far as safety goes. When this cut is completed, I will take it, turn it around so the bottom is still down, put it on here, and then I will clamp it against this arm for safety's sake as well. All right, let me just get my ear protection and we'll get this started. All right, you can see the numbers there. That's going to be the inside of the ring. And I'm very happy with how that came out. My apologies, some idiot forgot to turn on the camera to record gluing the featuring together. But it is, after all, the same as the other glue up. I want to do a little bit of shear scraping now. All right, that's beautiful, nice and smooth. I'll just continue along here and I'll be back. No use showing you all of the shear scraping. The inside is already sanded to 400. Once I sand the outside, I will finish the inside, but I won't put finish on the outside until I've got the rest of the rings on. I used 2 coats of sanding sealer on the inside, and now I'm going to use a couple of coats of Minwax Wipe-On Poly. And then I am going to use Axe abrasive paste and polishing paste to finish it off. Now when I sanded the outside, I did start at 280 grit, but I quickly realized, as you can often tell when you start sanding, that there were some very tiny ripples, 2 of them, that I couldn't see until I started sanding. So I dropped back to 220 grit and then proceeded to 400. And dropping back to 220 didn't upset me too badly, since I still quite often start with 80 grit paper on some pieces. Alright, I'll put the 2 coats of this on, then continue with Axe pastes, and I will be back. I learned a little lesson here. I wanted to turn the top from the top ring to the ring that's just above the feature ring. But what I hadn't considered is the fact that as these get wider, some of them also get thinner. This one is a 1/16 of an inch thick. I'm going to have another one down here that's only 1/32 of an inch thick. And I already can't be sure that this is totally flat. So I am starting over with the ring that goes just above the feature ring, and I will build up toward the top. When I get back to where this is, I'm going to have this turned away, and I'll redo that ring, then glue all of these rings on there. At that point, I will be able to turn this, reverse it back onto the chuck, and turn this one down to the thickness that I want it to be. Try to match up the dimensions on the outside and inside of this ring to that of the feature ring, and then glue it up. So I'll continue with these rings and I'll be back. I have drawn 2 lines here, one right there and one right there, and those designate the inside and outside dimensions of the bottom of the bowl that I have already finished. I have finished on the inside anyway, and this line is right on the edge over here. It's a little bit off center apparently. So what I want to do is start by using a parting tool right on that line, because I don't want to take a chance on my gouge going on here and skating across. I already have this ring to the dimension I want, thickness wise. Now I imagine you couldn't see much of what was going on in there because I couldn't see it either. I was turning by feel as much as by sight. There's one very thin little ridge right here, and I can't see what I'm doing. I'm going to try just shear scraping that. All right, that's taken it off of there. Happy at the moment with this on the inside. Now I'm going to turn to turning the outside. I think it's time for me to sand and put the finish on the interior on the top, just like you did in the bottom. There's just one more little detail I want to add to this. When I glue this top half to the bottom half, I don't want the glue to go on the inside because I'm going to have finish in there. So what I want to do is create a little detail with the corner of my skew chisel so that if I put glue only out here, hopefully any extra will go into that little trench rather than spilling on the inside. I will put the same thing into the lip of the bottom half. All right, I hope that's going to be big enough combined with the one on the bottom to contain that glue. I have 8 coats of Minwax Wipe-On Poly in here, and it is just gorgeous. But I want to see just what will happen with Axe Abrasive Sanding Paste and his Polish Restoring Paste. That has definitely smoothed this out nicely. Well, that's about as shiny as I could expect it to get. Feels beautiful. All right, a few more coats of Wipe-On Poly in the top and I'll be able to turn to match up the top and the bottom on the outside and then glue this together. I'll be back. As I said, I want to make sure I get glue only around the outside. I don't want any going into these little grooves on either one of these until I press them together, and I'm hoping that that will be enough room for the glue that wants to squeeze toward the inside to just stay in there, not go in the inside of the bowl. All right, I'm going to use very little bit. This is Titebond Original. All right, looks like there's a nice even squeeze out all the way around. So now I'm just going to give this plenty of time for that glue to set. This is ready for sanding now, which I'm going to do off camera. Then I'm going to use the same finishing techniques I used on the inside, which includes sanding sealer, Minwax wipe-on poly, and then Axe abrasive and polishing pastes. And I'll be back when I have finished that. I have 8 coats of Minwax wipe-on poly on the outside again, and I'm very happy with the look of it, but it's just a little bit rough. So I'm going to use Axe pastes again, which I really like. We'll start with the sanding paste, then the polishing paste, and you've already seen me do this, so this one's going to be real fast. Well, that is about as smooth and shiny as I could hope for. And I hope whoever ends up with this is going to be pleased with it. All right, now it's time to part this off. Rather than use a parting tool on here, I'm going to use a 1/2-inch skew chisel to just remove the hot glue. I have a cone on my live center wrapped with a rag to protect the inside of the opening, and that's in there tight enough that this should not fly off here when this glue lets go, if it does that. I'm hoping to take it off just enough that I can pry this off. Turning this at 500 RPM. All right, I am going to reverse this now into my donut chuck and finish the bottom. This is my donut chuck. There's a hole in this piece of plywood, and around that I've got a piece of rubber hose. Now, I'd really like to get a different piece. I can't find anything that works as well, but this has filaments around it and you can feel it. So if I tighten it up too much, I'll imprint that into the finish. So this is not as tight as I could make it, but because of the friction of the rubber, it should be tight enough. Now when I run this, you will see that this particular piece of plywood is not running true, but what's important is that the vessel is. So I'm going to be running this relatively slowly at 500 RPM. I don't want to take any chances on the donut chuck flying apart. By the way, if you're interested in this, I do have a video on how to make it. I made that video quite a while ago, and I'll put a link in the description box down below the video. Now I'll be turning this at 500 RPM with my 3/8" bowl gouge, and then I'll be using a parting tool to round this on the bottom. All right, I like that. And that's a little a little flatter than I want it. I want it to be going in from the outside and just have a ring on the outside that it'll sit on. All right, I like that a lot better. Now I'll use the parting tool to take care of rounding this. All right, I'm going to sand all of this, and I will use pyrography to put my signature in there, identify the woods, the year, and I'll be back. Well, I am very pleased with how this turned out. It's 9 3/4 inches in diameter. The base is just under 6 inches, and the opening is 3 inches. Now, I'm a little bit disappointed, but the thing is I can't get my hand inside there. My hand's too big, but my wife can. And she reached around inside where that joint is, and it's not perfect. She said that there is a little bit of a ridge in there, but I'm going to have to accept that because perfection, well, it just doesn't happen in my shop. So there you go. So to recap the prizes, the first draw will be for the Axe pastes, the second for the Starbond products, and the third one for this vessel. I wish you all luck, and remember now, you need to put that word that flashed on the screen into your comment, and you have to be a subscriber. So if you're not a subscriber now, hit that subscribe button. I'd really like to see someone take this home, as well as the other products. So I want to thank you very much for joining me, and a huge thank you for all those who've subscribed and followed me all these years, getting me up to 20,000. I never thought I'd get even close to that. Close now. So I'm going to do the draw on the 30th of October at 11:59 p.m. right as we're crashing into Halloween. So there you go. Trick or treat, you decide. I'm going to record that so you can see that everything's legitimate, and probably the next day I'll release the video just showing who the winners are. So again, thank you so much to my subscribers. I don't have the words to tell you how much I appreciate you. So between now and the next time I put out a video, stay safe and have a great day in your shop. Bye-bye now.